Right. Good evening. Welcome to lots of talk and most importantly, lots of listening to Magnum. We are in for a night of storytelling, and it's all about one man and his assorted ragged band throughout the years. Hey, Tracy, good to see you in here. I'm going to kick off a little poll because I'm not sure who will have in terms of people like Tracy who don't really know Magnum. People like myself who know Magnum maybe a little bit too well, and people who are somewhere in between. So let me get that started while we see if more people come in and join. I know we've got a few who've said they will, but you know what it's like. So, super fan, that's me. Office for in between. Alrighty. So that poll is up. Oh, River, good to see you in here. You think you've heard a track or two, or by the end of the next hour and a half or two, you'll have heard more. Um, so, I'll start by introducing um, myself for anyone out there who doesn't know me. I'm Joseph, or Joe, or JSB. Yeah, I've got many names, but you can call me Joe. Folks around here will call me that or JSB. That's fine. And I am a Magnum fan of not quite 20 years standing, so therefore I got into them later than most people who are into them. Um, my entry point was 2007's Princess Alice and the Broken Arrow album, which got rave reviews on the melodicrock.com forums, and I actually took a punt and bought it without having heard a note, and yeah, I was blown away. And then I quickly gathered as much more of them as I could, which is as close to being everything now. So, yeah. As for who Magnum are, for those who don't know, they are a British band formed in Tracy's place of birth, Birmingham. And that was back in the early 70s. It took them a while to get a recording career starting up. So the debut album, Kingdom of Madness, came out in 78. And then their presumably final album came out last year, which is this one, Here Comes the Rain. It came out pretty much a year ago today. And the reason it's the last one and the reason this live stream is in tribute to Tony Clarkin is because about a year ago, uh, days before the release of that album, uh, we lost Tony, pretty unexpectedly, it has to be said. I mean, he was up there in age, I guess. These are not young spring chickens. He was only 77. He had years and albums left in him, probably, but wasn't to be. So uh, the reason he is so important is because he is Magnum's guitarist. He, for the great chunk of his career, is Magnum's producer, and first and foremost, Magnum songwriter. Every single song we hear tonight will have been written by the late, great Tony Clarkin. And his style evolved and changed a bit throughout the years, as did Magnum. So they started off kind of, I guess you would call them pomp rocky, in the early days on the Jet label. Then from Storyteller's Night on to Goodnight LA 1990, Sleepwalking 92, they became kind of a more almost British AOR band or a melodic rock band. And then in more recent years, since they came back together after a brief split in the late 90s, they've been classic British hard rock, basically. Um, so, yeah, we're going to hear samples of all of that in relatively random fashion. So, those who've been here before know what I like to do, which is I've cultivated a mini set list or playlist rather of Magnum tunes from across their entire catalogue. We'll spin them on random, and in most cases, pick 1 and 3. So either I'll be picking them, or if there's fans in the chat who want to have a choice, you'll be welcome to do that. And if there's people who don't know Magnum at all but want to have a choice, as always, knock your socks off. So, with all that said, let's Hessing Magnum and get into the random list. So, yeah, there's 76 songs on this list, and we're not going to hear that many of them. We'll hear some. We'll start with something from the very beginning. This was recorded for the original debut, but didn't make it for reasons I'll mention in a moment. It's Find the Time. And Tracy, my memory is highly selective, so don't expect to be impressed by me too many times on that or any other front, really. And River, when you say you heard a track or two, do you only mean on reactions to the Classics live streams, or have you encountered them throughout the years and other places? Well, we'll leave it there, Tracy, because otherwise I might never get anything right again if I get a big head about things. I'm sure you know Magnum 4's Clint Eastwood. Magnum ice creams? Okay, River. Yeah, I think there was a listing in the Guide to Heavy Metal in the 90s said that they were about as heavy as a damp lettuce leaf. That said, I had purchased some Magnum albums from heavy metal sections in music shops, so I don't buy that they're metal at all, but yeah, they were in and around. So I mentioned that was set for their debut, and that's maybe not quite a finished track, because it happened to Magnum twice that they had to wait 2 years for their albums to go from being recorded to being released. And so what happened with the debut was, by the time it was about to be released, they had some new and better songs, so they ditched a few of the ones that they had recorded, and what we just heard, Find the Time, was one of those, and they were replaced with more up-to-date, complete songs. So maybe it was good for them in the long run that happened. The first time, at least. The second, not so much. Alrighty, so it's time for a choice of 3, and the choice will be mine, and I'll make it a good one. And I've got Just Like an Arrow, one of their most commercial songs, Out of the Shadows, which is from the reunion in the 2000s, but a slightly altered version because it's from the Evolution album, or No Stepping Stones from the Monster Roars from 2022. Yeah, I've got some hard choices that I'm going to have to make tonight, and My first hard choice is, golly gosh. Let's be commercial, because this is probably cheesiest song we'll hear tonight. This could be 80s soundtrack kind of material, and it grazed the UK charts, which was actually their first chart single. But this is from On the Storyteller's Night, which is generally considered the Magnum masterpiece, as there is just one of them. Would I subscribe to that notion or not? It's close. Hey Bo Stark, good to see you in here. You've only missed a brief introduction about who I am, which you already know, and a little bit of a rundown about the band. So, but anybody in the chat who has questions or comments that I can answer or other people in the chat can answer. Rusty Bar, thanks for joining us. Fan since Vigilante, first ever gig was Vigilante at Bristol Cos Hall. Wow. You've been fan only 21 years longer than I have. So, welcome. Yeah, River saying the album art might trick some folks. The album art is brilliant, but it tricks people into thinking a lot of things that are kind of wrong, like that they're a fantasy band, which is actually pretty ludicrous for the most part. Yeah, I get that, Bo-Star, and I mean, I love Tony mostly for his deeper lyrics, the anti-war stuff, which he's written so many masterpieces on, and even a lot more recent songs. He's always writing about something, even if I don't necessarily know what it is. But there's always a lot of thought in his lyrics, especially. Every Petton, I fear that they were before my time, but River, the bulk of the artwork comes from Rodney Matthews, whose art is all over the place, with prog and metal bands and all sorts of things. All right, that was Just Like an Arrow. As I say, it made it to number 83 in the UK charts, which at the time made it their biggest hit. The bigger hits were to come, but we may or may not hear them tonight. So I'll aim for a contrast from that track with my next selection, which is between All My Bridges, again the Evolution version, One Night of Passion, the acoustic version. There are some oddities and surprises on this list, and From Within, from On the 13th Day. Well, that's a good recentish track, so let's take us into 2012. Obviously, I have most of the albums to hand. Oh, where's iTunes gone? In theory, you should have been able to see what I've been listening to, but have we not been able to? That's a shame. Now you can see too much. I don't know. I'll get the hang of this one day. There we go. That's what we wanted. So as I said a little bit earlier, by this point Tony is not just playing guitar and writing every song, he's also producing every album. So for some people that meant the albums became a lot more samey than they were in their original days, where every single album was with a different producer. But the other side of that coin is, well, by this point in time, Tony knew exactly what Magnum were, exactly what he wanted them to be, and he could get the results he wanted quickly and cheaply. So, and we had an album basically every 2 years on the dot, and the quality never dipped, right to the end. So this is the kind of music that, if you're not into, nothing's going to change your mind on it, but I think a lot of people who haven't heard Magnum would dig them. Well, River, if you're an Avantasia fan, then Bob Catley, who is the other mainstay of the band, lead vocalist, he is on every Avantasia album from at least the Wicked Symphony, and he tours with them as well. Tobias Sammet is also on Lost on the Road to Eternity, so if that one comes up, it's a guaranteed play. So I haven't peeked, but Rusty Bar, if you want to do the honours of selecting a song at some point, just let me know in the chat, and when the time comes, I will let you know what your choices will be. Actually, the same goes for anybody who's around and in the chat. If you want to make a choice at any point, just say something in the chat that lets me know that you do, and at some point I'll add you to the list and see what you get given. And you know, if you need guidance from me, if you're a novice, then it shall be given. Rusty's saying he thinks Tony was great at producing music but got better and better at producing Bob's voice. I can see that. I think he got better at a lot of things. I mean, not counting the 11th hour in '83 when he definitely did not know what he was doing, and how could he? But when we get to something like Breath of Life, the first of the reunion albums, where the production's pretty bad, mainly because of processed drums and hideousness of that sort. So yeah, we've talked a little bit, obviously, about Tony, and as I say, Bob is where is he? There he is. That's our lead singer. This is Wings of Heaven album, the highest charting in the UK, number 5, and the only Magnum album to have the band members on the front. But you can very much see it's Bob and Tony, and the other 3 are back in the distance, which is not to denigrate their talents, but it does show you what the core of Magnum was. So, speaking of lineups, well, let's see what's next before we get into that. So, as you see, option number 1 is Live Till You Die from the shirt that I'm in, Escape from the Shadow Garden. Eyes Wide Open from Princess Alice and the Broken Arrow. And The Word from the 11th Hour. Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to you guys taking over the choices because this is tough. I'm going to go Live Till You Die because I'm wearing the t-shirt, so you know. And River, you might recognise the riff from this because it's stolen from somebody, I think. We'll start. Good to hear On a Storyteller's Night at some point. So you mean the title track, I take it, or some fluty stuff from the first album? There's not that much flute on the first album, or indeed any Magnum. There's none later, but. And Ashley, thanks for joining the chat. Welcome. Been your favourite band for 30 years, and your parents' favourite band for longer. Wow. And you've met the band several times and always been. Yeah, I bet they are lovely guys to talk with. I have. Oddly, I've met lots of members of my favourite bands, but I've only met one member of Magnum, who was the utterly lovely Al Barrow, who we're hearing at the moment on the bass guitar. Right, Rusty, I will give you the next choice because this is a slightly longer track. I've got time to give you the options, and you just let me know in the chat which you want to go with. Poison Chalice, I'm afraid. Was the track? No, I'll do the next one. And then I'll give you options, because you actually had them there. But I'm not thinking any further ahead than I have just now. So Ashley, I wonder, someone who's a second generation fan, how do you and your parents differ, if at all, on which albums or eras you prefer from the band? Because obviously, I'm assuming they grew up on the big 80s albums, and whereas you maybe are like me and kind of see it all from much the same vantage point. Hey Evan David, you are only a bit late, so not to worry. Good to have you in here. There is a poll running at the moment. If you haven't caught it, to add your thoughts to on your level of Magnum fandom. I know you've recently picked up that double compilation from them, so. Okay, Boatstar asked a good question. A lot of harder rocking groups are more used to writing in collaborations. How did the other guys feel about Tony doing it all himself? Well, mostly they think he knows what he's doing, and you know, for the most part, he gave the band members an awful lot of freedom, especially Bob. He would write things to tailored to Bob's voice, of course, but Bob would also say, I don't know what the song's about, or this isn't the right key for me, what can you do about that? Rusty, well, I see, I'll come back to that in a second, about what the others felt. I'm not sure if Backstreet Kid or Wu-Tang is on this list. because I am just shuffling one carefully curated playlist, but we will find out. So I might in a moment give you 3 specific choices to choose from, if that's alright. I'm not saying that those tracks won't come up, because I have by this stage of course forgotten what's on this list, and I'm only finding out as they come along. Yeah, so both start. There's only really one member of the band who ever had a problem with Tony's level of control, and that was Mark Stanway, long-time keyboardist from the 80s, and rejoined in the reunion and then left in the middle of a tour in 2017, I think it was. By which point he felt that Tony was taking too much control and he had no freedom to do his parts, and whether that's right or not, I can't speak for any other side, but his replacement has done amazing keyboard work, so I think his heart probably wasn't in it and he wasn't contributing as much as he could have done. Might be the truth of it, but I can only speculate. Complicated relationships when you're in the band with someone for all those years. Alrighty. Well, we are going to stay in the modern era for the next track, because I picked ahead planning to give this choice to Rusty, which was Sacred Blood, Divine Lies, which is the title track of the following album from 2016. Master of Disguise, which is another outtake from the first album, and Sacred Hour. Now, the reason I'm not doing Sacred Hour now is because this version of Sacred Hour came out officially yesterday, and is the last track Tony ever played with the band, and it's that recording. So I thought we would probably say that for the end, which we're not at yet. So therefore, Sacred Blood, Divine Lies. And then after this, Rusty, I've got 3 choices for you, which are The Day He Lied from Here Comes the Rain, Road to Paradise from the 11th Hour, but the BBC Radio something version, or Show Me Your Hands from Lost on the Road to Eternity. So if you've got a choice from those 3 you would like to nominate, that will be up next. Oh wow. Rusty says he was at the gig in Dublin the night after Mark Stanway left. So am I right in thinking that that was the night that they had to perform with just programmed stuff, or was Rick in there already? I know he came in super quick to finish off that tour. Thank goodness it was only a little end of year tour. Oh, and Ashley was at the Birmingham Symphony Hall in 2018. Wow. Nice one. All right, Rusty. Day He Lied will be up next, and then, well, we'll get to that first. Then Ashley, if you're up for making a choice, I will throw one your way in a few moments. So this track and the one we just heard are from the second longest, I'm just doubting myself here, one of the longest running lineups of the band anyway. So obviously Tony and Bob are the main stage whenever we are, but here we've got Al Barrow on bass, Mark Stanway on keyboards on his final full album, and Harry James on the drums. Harry, of course, is from Thunder, who some of you might know, and because Thunder is Harry's real band, he kind of left and returned a couple of times to Magnum in between Thunder breaking up and reforming. So yeah, they were getting very busy around the time of this album, and so he stepped down to rejoin them on a full-time basis. Of course, the other lineup that we have to mention is the classic lineup from basically 85 to 95, which was Wally Lowe on bass. He was there from the start. Mark Stanley as well, of course, and Mickey Barker on the drums. And look, all Magnum drummers are amazing, but Mickey Barker is number one. I think there's no dissent on that point. But Ashley or Rusty, if you have differences of opinion of anything I say, feel free to let me know. I'm not a dictator on these things. Other opinions always welcome. Rusty's saying the crew found a way of doing Mark's parts and dubbing crowds with Mad Magnum carry on. Yeah. So for those who don't know my channel, which is Acting is Reacting, there's another kind of... Are we similar? I don't know. But there's a channel called Reactions to the Classics where some people in the chat, like Bostar, Evan, David and Tracy, that's where we all know each other from because they stream Wednesday nights, UK time. Sean, who runs that channel, sometimes with his son Trey, they've done reactions to a bunch of Magnum songs for me. And anybody wanting to know more about Magnum after this would do better to go and see the top 10 that Sean did for me, which was the top 10 Magnum songs starting with an S. So this song was on that list, but it covered right from the early demo of Stormbringer up to the Serpent Rings, which was at that point the most recent album. And it kind of told a potted history of the band chronologically as we went through, so that was fun to do, and Sean did of course a great job on getting through all those songs, even if he completely misunderstood what Show Me Your Hands was about. Well, thank you Rusty, I appreciate that. About a minute left, or just under a minute left for this one, and then we'll move on to our first track from the final album, as requested from his measly choice of 3 options by Rusty. And that's the segue into Crazy Old Mothers, which was the single from that album, and I think one of the worst singles they've ever released. But we're not hearing that tonight. We are hearing the dang thing. Actually, I will throw some options in the chat of the next 3, because for those not following along from the start, this is a random playlist we're working through. I mean, it's curated first. You'll see what I mean.
Just turn away. Storms that
Pardon my terrible typing. I do know that Tattoo only has 2 O's at the end. I see Evan, David and Tracy are just talking about Transformers as usual, so that's good to know. So Ashley, yeah, just let me know in the chat which of those 3 you would like we'll throw it on next. By the way, this is the, of course, final lineup of Magnum. You see, my backgrounds are playing games with this, but well, here we have the current final Magnum drummer, Lee, and it's his birthday today, so happy birthday, Lee. Excellent choice, Ashley. That will be up next, and then we'll see what comes along next. I like to say that Magnum have a few dance numbers, but that's just because I'm a hilarious person, as you are discovering to your dismay right about now. So we, apart from our first couple of tracks, which were oldies, we mostly focused on newer tracks for the start of the string, which is kind of the way a Magnum gig would play out. They play a fair chunk of newer songs before breaking out the classics. And they're not one of those bands who you go to year in, year out, and they just play the same set list every single time. They would shake it up. You get new songs, some old songs that they hadn't played for yonks thrown in. Well, there are a handful of songs that you couldn't escape, but that's true of anyone. Any connections between Magnum and Doctor Who? You probably are, Evan David, but off the top of my head I can't come up with one. Other than the fact, of course, that Magnum have an album called The Visitation. And as Bostart says, both made comebacks in the 2000s. And did they come back even better and bigger than before? Well, maybe. All right, that was The Day He Lied from last year, which we still have to get used to thinking of it as last year. Here Comes the Rain album. So, Ashley's choices were between Staying Alive, something else, and this is what was chosen: Dance of the Black Tattoo, which was also part of the final ever gig that has just been released on CD, etc. yesterday, and which I was at KK Mills in Wolverhampton in late 2022. Okay, actually, so sorry, I'm sure you said where you were before, because you saw obviously the Symphony Hall gig in Birmingham. So you in that neck of the woods? Because I'm obviously going. Well, not obviously. I'm going to the London show on the 21st. Yeah, for those who don't know the band, they are returning for a quite brief mini tour in tribute again, as we are doing tonight, in tribute to Tony Clarkin. It's only 5 dates, but they've had to bump them up to bigger venues, so it's gone well. I don't know if that means that they will do more in the future or if this will be it, but we'll have to wait and see. Our bow star on guitar is the late great Tony Clarkin, writer of all the songs, guitarist on all the songs. And I have to admit, when I think of Tony, I always think songwriter, but he was a damn tasty guitarist and a versatile one as well. Oh, on the latest tour, you mean? His name escapes me, Bostart, but he was Tony's guitar tech, so they've kept it in the family, so to speak. Oh, Rusty, I'm sorry to hear that about your girlfriend. This was one of her favourite. His was her favourite song. So, unlike Marillion, who I did a similar show on last month, Magnum had more cross appeal amongst the genders. Still quite heavily male, but certainly the girls are not out of place at a Magnum gig like they are in Marillion Land. Rusty saying, yeah, Brendan Riley or O'Reilly. I just saw the name again today, but it's gone out of my head, which is terrible behaviour on my part. I'm sure I'll remember once I've actually seen him though. Nothing Loughborough. Cool. Oh wow, Ashley. So you're a third generation Magnum fan, or your parents spread the love in both directions. I think there is. I mean, that's definitely something I've seen at Magnum gigs over the years. It's a real mix of ages, and it's not as if kids are independently listening to Magnum, so it's almost always a family affair. All right, the next choice will be mine, and I don't know what I've got coming up, but I'm going to try and, if I get the option, take us back to the early years, by which I could mean anything from the split before '95. Alrighty. Nice choice, Ashley, and it's a favourite not just of you, but of lots of people. It does mean we must need a lot of love, but you can't have everything. Okay, so my choices are Without Love from Lost on the Road to Eternity, All of My Life from Magnum 2 back in '79, or Kingdom of Madness. Well, Bostart was asking for some early fluty stuff. This is probably the best example you can get, so let's hear it. Definitely Magnum's signature song, especially in the early days. There's your flute. So you can't see any of them above, but the debut has been released in a number of different sleeves over the years, so I'm still not really sure which is the official one, if there is an official one. So that with the big eye is one version. This is another. Then in the 80s, it was reissued with the Rodney Matthews album cover. And for those who do like the early stuff, this came out a couple of years ago, which is Great Adventure, the Jet Years. So you've got the first 4 studio albums, the first live album, and that's outtakes and rarities disc as well. So a lot of bang for your buck in that box there. But you can hear the difference in Bob's voice when you've been hearing much more recent material than going all the way back to the 70s. Just any whole mix. I think the chat's telling us the story as much as anything. And obviously hello to everybody who's not able or willing to jump into the chat but is on board, popping in and hanging out. I see you and you're very welcome. You've got me on the run. Hi Tracy, don't worry, we only played their rubbish songs while you were away. There aren't any. Okay, there's one. Okay, it's not on the list. Speaking of Kingdom of Madness, those of you who don't know, which is probably everybody but Rusty and Ashley, after he left the band, Mark Stanway set up a kind of tribute band to early Magnum called Kingdom of Madness, which features himself on keyboards, Richard Bailey on keyboards, who was the original keyboardist, and Mickey Barker on drums. So, have you guys caught a Kingdom of Madness gig, and what do you think of them if you did? I'll save my thoughts for them for a little bit later. Evan Davis says that was the for a long time the only Magnum song he knew, and it always reminded him of Hamlet. Hamlet is soundtracked by Queen, maybe? Do we get some Queen in there? I think we do. All right. Next up, live version of La Mort Dansant. I don't know what the other choices are, but I don't really need to look because I'm going to play that. But just for the sake of going through the motions, Crying Time. This is a nice rarity. Was another option, or the Moon King, but we've heard. I mean, that's a great track. This is a signature song from the On a Storyteller's Night album, but the original studio version is one of the rare cases for Magnum where it doesn't quite work in the studio version because mainly the keyboard sound is a bit but it's not on the live version, so let's hear it. This is one of Tony's great anti-war songs, inspired by World War One and, soldiers being condemned to death because of desertion, but, basically the things they'd seen, they were what we would now term mentally ill. It wasn't a thing then. It was just sheer cowardice. And this is the only song that Magnum have done at every gig that I've seen. So that tells you how it sits in their catalogue. And I would never complain about hearing it again. Tracy, you can jab at me all you like. And both start asking, was there a Queen feel on the album Roger Taylor and David Richards produced? Yes, to a degree. I mean, that album is a real overproduced mess, in my opinion. Great songs, but the production is so slick on it. So it's 80s Queen. We might hear something from it and see what your ears think of it, but who knows? There's so many albums that we're not going to get through a sample from every one of them, I'm afraid. I also think you've not seen Mark's band, not a deliberate thing, just it's not felt right. Okay. Oh. I've seen them 3 times, and they've had a different singer every time. And currently, they have a guy called Chris Dando, and I didn't think he was very good at all. So I would currently not recommend Kingdom of Madness, whereas previously I would have done. Oh, both start. I do the jokes. He's saying they didn't do it a kind of magic. Huh. Ha. Ha. No. So Rusty's saying Backstreet Kid figures was his favourite ever song, got overtaken by this, which is still number 1. And I'm not going to play the game with you. Get out of that hot space you're in, or I'll indulge in some innuendo. And yeah, Evan David, as Rusty's saying there, 23 studio albums, so yeah, it's a lot. And I don't know what years your compilation covered, probably no later than the 90s. It's not really an anthology of the more recent albums. I wonder if STV, which is the label they've been on for century, will do something about that. I suspect they probably will, because I appreciate that another 10 or 11 albums is, or is it 12? Another bunch of albums is a lot to digest. I'll also give my suggestions for 3 reunion albums that are, I think, the must-haves if you only get 3. Tracy, they formed in 1972. Recorded their first demos in 74. Released a cover version of Sweets From My Sweet as their first single in 75. And then finally came out properly with their debut album in 78. Yeah, Ashley, I can understand not wanting to, but for me, I had to seek into the madness because I had to see Mickey Barker, and I'm not sorry that I did that. All right. So I'll just pause super briefly on the end there. I've recommended, I think, this to you in the past by start, but that was from the Spirit live album. And for me, for somebody who doesn't like the 80s production on Storyteller, Vigilante, Goodnight LA, Wings of Heaven, that live album has a bunch of the best songs from those albums and is a great sounding release. So this may be a good way to get those songs if you're not into some of the 80s production. So that's one of my many suggestions for those who don't just go out and get every single thing. Okay. So next three, speaking of 80s, Days of No Trust from Wings of Heaven, On a Storyteller's Night from On a Storyteller's Night, and Remember from The Monster Roars. Well, Remember is one of my favourite songs from recent albums, but most kind of requested this one before as well, so it's very hard to pass over On a Storyteller's Night. From the same album as Le Mort Dansant, but done right first time. Here we go. Ashley's wondering now what Wally Lowe is up to these days. He was, for those of you who don't know, the bass player from more or less the start, right through to the end of '95 when they split up. From what I gather, he completely left the music business and moved to Spain, but I don't know what he's done in the past, crikey, 30 years. But hope he's well.
Throwing shadows to the gable, and you swallow if you're able on a storyteller's night.
This highlights one of the
From the pool house,
kind of hallmarks of Tony's writing, that he could move you through moods and feels within a song. So for those who don't know, this song veers between this kind of moody verse and a big up-tempo commercial chorus that gets your fist pumping and everybody's singing along. So yeah.
But we all lose track of time, disappears like faded lights. Keep the night light burning. I'm coming when the rain. Keep your night light burning. I'll be with you once again.
Queen are quite down the list of things I'm likely to do a listening party on, to be honest, Evan David, although you never know. I don't own that much Queen because I don't like that much Queen, to be honest. I'm a greatest hits is more than enough kind of guy when it comes to that.
But you're not sure on a storyteller's night. See the night sky, supernova. Chase the cold moon, passing over. Start the dragons, fight a smolder on a storyteller's night. Try to sleep on your pillow and dream. Sleep, all God's children to keep. Don't lose track of time.
I've
Disappears like faded light.
just peeked ahead, Low Start, and the next three does feature a track from that Roger Taylor produced album, and Dave Richards, of course, so we'll spin that one next. But what that will be, we'll have to wait and see. Here's another great example of Tony's guitar playing. boast out Mark's quite a complicated person, but you know, I don't know. So, great musician, and I think, as I say, when you're with the same people for so many years, it's only natural that things happen, good and bad. But he does clearly still greatly respect Tony and Bob, because he always mentions how brilliant they are in his shows. So. And a proper musical ending. That's another hallmark of Tony's, is he likes to end a song. We don't have too many silly old fade outs. All right, so the three choices that I've already pre-decided, having glanced ahead, were Hushabye Baby from Rock Art, very different song from anything else we're hearing tonight, Lonely Night from Vigilante, and Reborn from Magnum 2. So we are going to come back to Lonely Night. So, you hear what I'm talking about, the production already, I think. This was the opening track of the Vigilante album and was also the first single. The first to break the top 75 in the UK, but only to number 70. And my regulars will know what this means, but I'm starting to get the message about copyrighted audio being detected in the stream. So for those who haven't been on one of these before, at some point the stream might suddenly go down. If it does, I'll let you know in the chat whether I'll relaunch with a part 2 soon after. At this point I will, but that will probably change the nearer we get to the 2-hour mark. Yeah, Boaster, it was kind of a leave of absence is how it's described. So Magnum were, at that point in time, well, people weren't sure they existed for a little while. It's said to be kind of a ruse to get out of their deal with Jet Records, but it was quite convincing. It looked like they might be done and dusted in 83, 84, but obviously not in the end. We talked earlier that there were 23 studio albums. Really, it's 22 because one of them was 1993's Keeping the Nightlight Burning, which was an acoustic remix album. They remade this, and it's so much better in an acoustic version. I mean, it's like a completely different song. And then they remade the acoustic version again for a ballads compilation that they released in 2017. Yeah, so there's some debate as to how much work Roger Taylor actually did on this album. He might have left a good chunk of it to David Richards to do, but he was very much a supporter of the band. A big name to be associated with, obviously. So they didn't do badly out of the collaboration. And in theory, they also wanted to keep that team on for the follow-up, but scheduling didn't allow for it. So if they had managed it, it would have been the only time they had the same producer twice in a row in the early days. All right. And Ashley saying that the music video for that used to creep him out. I have never seen a Magnum music video, which might sound astonishing, but it is the truth. All right. Next three options. We've got Breath of Life. My favourite Magnum song, but probably a little long for a stream. Don't Wake the Lion, Too Old to Die Young. And Broken City from Here Comes the Rain. Well, I think I'll play this one because I mentioned that Tony knew what he wanted by the end of Magnum's run, but this is a track from the very last Magnum album and showing that he was still doing things he'd never done before. So hopefully you'll hear what I mean as we go again into war-torn lands, but in a modern setting. This one's inspired by Ukraine, so right up to date, unfortunately.
No more, maybe again. That's not a surprise. It's so hard to pretend.
Thanks for joining, Rusty, and the whole thing should hopefully stay up on the channel, so you can catch up on replay the rest of it if you so desire. And do subscribe to the channel and click like and all that stuff. But yeah, really appreciate you coming in. Oh, the music going up, not down. That's interesting. And Evan David, the next track will be dedicated to you, so don't you go anywhere.
They never will fall. Take back their dignity, written like a game on every wall.
I have so many props, I knew that I would. Oh, I haven't seen that either. Oh, that's it. That's it. Hopefully you'll actually be able to see it. The artwork for this particular tune.
No children playing in the distance, just the gunfire. As someone's name is carved in stone. No dancers swaying through the night, no place to call home. Some people dare to walk alone. Call it fate, misunderstood.
Rusty, just before he headed out, said that Lonely Night was the first Magnum song he ever heard, so a little bit protective of it. Sorry, Rusty, I'm assuming genders here, so apologise if you're a Rusty lady. Most are asking if we ever heard any of Tony's demos where he sings the songs. No, nothing to my knowledge has ever been released, and there wouldn't be any cause to be. Tony sang backup, but he's not a singer, and yeah, everything he wrote was always intended for Bob. So, and Ashley saying, as a family, we all found it very hard to listen to the new album when it first came out. Tony's passing almost like losing a family member, and this song, so emotive and haunting, I feel exactly the same way. It was such a shock. Obviously, we knew that Tony was ill and wasn't going to. I mean, the tour had been cancelled, but we didn't think that was anything more serious. And again, things that we should not speculate about. Number two is the exact nature of Tony's passing, because it's really none of our business. The family didn't announce anything, so yeah, moving swiftly on. So, the next three songs. You'll Never Sleep from Princess Alice and the Broken Arrow, which you might recall at the top, well, if you were here right at the start of this stream, that was my entry point to the band, and is still my favourite Magnum album if I had to choose one. Wild Swan from Wings of Heaven, and The Seventh Darkness from Here Comes the Rain. Again, that last album. And The Seventh Darkness, my second ever video on the channel, was a first-time reaction to the lyric video of that song. And of course, Tony died a few days later, and boom, I got views, which is not the way I wanted to get views for my first proper video. But it also got me my first 3 subscribers as well. So there was definitely mixed emotions. But last week, Evan David said, will I be playing any songs that featured Jim Lee of Slade? Because for those who don't know, Evan David is a big Slade fan. So the answer is, yes, I am. The album closer of my favourite Magnum album, and quite possibly my favourite song from that album, featuring Jim Lee of Slade. It's You'll Never Sleep, and features some great keyboard work from Mr. Mark Stanley as well. There's also the only Magnum album with Jimmy Copley on drums, who is, again, he's no longer with us, but he played with so many people over the years, and aside from Mickey Barker, is my favourite Magnum drummer. Anybody new who's coming in, which it looks like is happening, do say hello in the chat if you're so inclined. As there do seem to be new viewers, I'll just reiterate that what I'm doing is spinning on random a playlist of songs from across every Magnum album, and then picking one out of every 3 that comes up on that list to listen to. We've gone all over the place tonight so far, and we will continue to do so for a little bit longer yet. This album marked the return of Rodney Matthews' artwork for the first time since 1992. He's designed every album since, apart from one. And my God, he should have designed that one, because that was a disaster, to put it bluntly. I don't usually look ahead each time as I'm doing tonight, but it's just when you're telling a story such as it is, and when there's lots of different people with different knowledge levels and different tastes, I'm trying to cover all the bases so people get as wide an overview as possible. So that's why I'm not dishing out the options as often as I would normally do. But next week we'll do something completely different, and I will be back same time next week for something which I haven't quite decided on yet. I might actually ask you lot in a little bit, because I've got a couple of options in my head, or I might put a poll up on the channel. Speaking of which, somebody please go and break the deadlock between Elton John and John Mayer, or I'll just have to do both of them. If anyone hasn't voted in my current community post poll, please do, please do. I start saying Ronnie's designs always look like they're for a concept album, and you get disappointed when you hit play. I guess if your expectations are based on the album cover, that could happen. I mean, I love his art and it's synonymous with Magnum for me, but it does have to be said that they really match the music. So there are pros and cons to the Rodney approach, but primarily his art's so good I just want it. And I never have, but I'm always tempted to buy the albums on vinyl to get them in a bigger format. All right, so the next three were Borderline, which I won't play tonight, but did feature on a previous live stream. It was the best of 2024 from the end of last year, obviously. Immigrant Son from Brand New Morning, which is my theme song, being an immigrant. And Lonely Night, the acoustic version. So given that the overproduced 80s original is still fresh within our minds probably, let's hear how they redid it 7 years later for their acoustic album and see what you think. We might even be able to do a poll to see if people preferred the other or this one. Wouldn't that be exciting? I love polls, don't you? Well, we'll start. The Princess Alice title, that song that we just heard, is related to Princess Alice Orphanage, which is near Birmingham, and Tony had some connection to it. We don't know exactly what, but the whole album sprang from that. So there's a theme, but it's not like a classic concept album. It's not much further away from a concept album than Sgt. Pepper, but yeah. And you sing the same for Escape from the Shadow Garden, which is also another favourite album of mine. But I guess because I knew they weren't, I never had the ability to be disappointed in something that they might have been, if that makes sense. So, both versions of the song that we've heard are the exact same lineup as well. So it's the classic lineup with Tony Bob, Wally Lowe on bass, Mike Stanley, and Mickey Barker. We've heard enough of this now for me to put that poll live and see if I've swayed you in thinking that this is the superior version. I'll be interested. Obviously, vote how you feel. Well, thank you, Ashley, for A, for seeing it in the first place and coming along, and B, for asking about it over there, because I think we had a bit of a spike when you asked that. And thanks to Al Barrow as well, who I mentioned earlier is the only member of Magnum I've ever met. At the time I met him, he was very drunk, but very lovely. Yeah, I'll leave it there. But it was a highly enjoyable experience. What can I say? So do vote in the poll whether you heard both versions. Well, if you know both versions anyway, whether you prefer this acoustic version or the original. It looks like people are mostly going with me, but not everybody, which is as life should be. And in that excitement of sending out polls, I hadn't picked ahead to see what was next. So the next three options are That Holy Touch, the Evolution version of Breath of Light track, That Freedom Word from the Monster Rules, and Back to Earth. Okay. I'm torn between two here. Ashley, if you chose between That Holy Touch, bearing in mind it's the Evolution version, or Back to Earth, which one would you go with? I'll just pause briefly to give you a chance to answer that. And while you're doing that, I'll talk about Evolution, because this came out in 2011, and it marked more or less the first decade of the reunited band. So 2 songs from each of the albums that they've released to that point, and 2 new songs. But the older the songs were, the more work was done on them. So they redid a lot of things on the first 2 tracks. See if it says in here somewhere. Probably does. But can I find it? Is the other question? No. Yeah. Because I mentioned earlier Breath of Life, which was the first reunion album, had mostly processed computer-driven drum sounds, which really kind of kills it for me. Ashley is saying Back to Earth would be the one. So we won't hear a track from Evolution. And he's gone with, or we're going with, this is a song that was released as a single and didn't chart at all. And to this day, I do not understand how it did not bother the chart compilers. But there we go. This was also the set opener for the Visitation Tour in 2011, which was the first proper Magnum tour that I ever attended. So this has taken us back to 1982, by the way. in that poll, and the acoustic version won, but it wasn't a resounding victory. If you're saying this made a fantastic set opener, yes it did, but sadly that was also the last tour that they played it on. Although we don't know what they're playing this year yet. Lee has already hinted that they are playing at least 4 songs that he's not played with them before, so that could mean all sorts of things coming up. But we'll wait and see. It's going to be great, whatever they play. Obviously this is one of the more commercial songs, because it sounds commercial, but obviously it wasn't. But then Jet Records really didn't do much for Magnum. It was a rough relationship, to put it mildly. Although of course at the time Sharon Arden, daughter of one of the Arden brothers, was chummy enough with Magnum that she got them onto her future husband Ozzy Osbourne's solo tour in America, which is the only time they toured the States. All right. And another set of 3. Where Do You Run To? Which is a 12-inch single B-side from the Goodnight LA era, still from Breath of Life, and Without Your Love, the acoustic version. Okay. Since we just heard a really commercial song, let's hear another one, but from a later time. And my thing about... Oh, Bo's not saying Sharon was Don's daughter. Okay. Because it was David Arden who signed them to the label, but of course it was Don's label. And yeah, I don't know that he was ever that bothered about letting the wider public know that this band was on his label. Yeah. There we go. Yeah, so around this time, Magnum were on Polydor, and they wanted a massive breakthrough in America. So they sent them out to LA, where they made the Goodnight LA album at Goodnight LA Studios, with Keith Olsen producing, who of course has produced Fleetwood Mac and Whitesnake and Foreigner, and the list goes on and on and on. And they spent a stupid amount of money on it. Never got released in America. So that was a waste of money. But this track isn't produced by Olsen, and it's better than a good chunk of what made the album. I don't get it. You often listen to songs like this and think, why didn't Magnum make it into America? I mean, the sound is so perfect for American ears at this point in time. And then you look at pictures of it and you think, oh yeah, that's right. In the image-obsessed 80s and early 90s, they wouldn't have stood a chance, and didn't. But it's America's loss, unfortunately. So I'm pulling this track off a pretty magnificent 5 CD box set called The Gathering, which came out in 2010, I think. I gather it's pretty impossible to find now, which is a shame because it's a great overview of certainly the early years. The recent reunion albums are kind of glossed over, but it's also got a nice history of the band and pictures from all throughout. So this is the kind of era we're in now. Tracy giving the Australian perspective that heaps of talented bands didn't make it in the States. Yes, that is very true. All right. Yeah. Right. Next three, and we're probably only have 2 or 3 more tracks, I think, kids, before we end for the night. So let's make the choices count. We've got The Tall Ships from Rockheart, Too Many Clouds from Escape from the Shadow Garden, and Cry for You from Goodnight LA. Actually, the album, and I don't think that's as good as the song we just heard. So let's go somewhere that we haven't been tonight and hear some 90s Magnum. Aside from the acoustic one, of course. This is Rockheart from 1994, by which point they were on EMI, astonishingly, but only for the one album, and it only reached number 57, which was a big downturn from recent albums at that point, and is surely a part in what led them to split up the following year. But interestingly, both Mark Stanley and Mickey Barker list this as their favourite Magnum album, so it had fans somewhere. It's probably not in my top 20 of their 23 albums, and it's still really good, and I love the song. Evan Davis giving examples of Slade and Status Quo being 2 examples of other bands that never cracked America. Tracy's saying good examples, but really she's thinking John Farnham and Jimmy Barnes and that sort of thing. Aren't you, Tracy? Aren't you? And you're right to as well, of course. Most of the night you've been able to see the song playing on the iTunes. It has occasionally disappeared and I've not noticed, so apologies for that. So I have seen into the future, and the random options for the next 2, I think, give us a nice conclusion to the night. For my next track, I'm going to take you back to last year's final album. Then we'll have a cut from the debut album, so first and last, and then we will end on the live version of Sacred Hour that was the last song Tony ever played with the band. So some spoilers there, but hopefully you've not got enough knowledge for that to ruin anything there. Actually saying Magnum a big part of life. There's a few tracks I'm not keen on, and this has been one of them. Don't know why. I know it's a fan favourite. Well, some things just don't hit you. There's only 3 Magnum songs that I don't like, and 2 of them are on this album. Telltale Eyes and Rock Heavy, and Baby Rock Me from the debut, which is the only Magnum song that I would describe as wretched. Tony got his worst song out of the way very early on in his career, so I was not saying they sound like they were rediscovering melody after the Arena production period. Yeah, I think Tony knew that there was a different direction he was going to take things, but in the end what he did was break the band up and form a new group called Hard Rain, which kind of went more in the direction that Rock Art took. Bob joined him for that, so they're basically 2 extra Magnum albums in many ways, especially as Al Barrow came in on bass on the second one of those, and then of course stayed around for the Magnum reunion. So the 3 that we have here was Only a Memory from Goodnight LA, which is one of the tracks that Keith Olsen managed not to ruin, and is another great anti-war song from Tony. Some Kind of Treachery from Here Comes the Rain, and No God Will Save You There, which I'll talk about in a second. But we're going with Some Kind of Treachery, which is again, for those from the reactions to the classics community, I had Sean and Trey do a song battle between this and Borderline early last year, and I can't remember which of them voted for the song. One of them did, and the other voted for the other one, which is what you want to happen when 2 people are judging your 2 favourite songs from an album. And both like, yeah, once the 80s were over, old artists stopped aping the sounds of the times and went back to what they were comfortable with. And yeah, I mean, there's so many examples of that. All for the better. I mean, you couldn't, I mean, I think it helped that those artists had reached a point where they weren't going to sell much of anything anyway, so trying to follow or chase trends was a pointless exercise. So if you're making music, you might as well do stuff you actually believe in, and then just know it's only going to get out to whatever core audience you have left, as long as you're still wanting to create that music. And obviously Lightfoot's another example of someone who embraced the 80s. America, that we listened to last week, did the same, and there's countless other options that you could list as similar examples. Yeah, Boaster, I like Eastern Midnight because the songs are so good. But the production, it's similar to Vigilante for me. And it's the same year. 1986 has the worst production of all time. There's also a faction of people you see on the internet who say things like Bob's voice is shot. Well, I've been going to Magnum gigs for the past 15 years and I've not noticed. And you all know how I turn my nose up at the hint of weak vocals. Yeah, he's older, raspier, but he still sounds damn great. He still believes every word he sings, and he still does this a lot, which is great fun. Can't wait to see him in 10 days' time. Especially as we thought we'd never see him fronting Magnum again. It might only be for a few dates this month and that's it, but it'll be a nice way to say a proper farewell to the band and Tony if that is the case. And of course, hopefully he's touring with Avantasia again later in the year. Because they have Here Be Dragons out in March, which has Rodney Matthews cover art. What would you know? Alrighty. So again, another track from Here Comes the Rain, their 23rd and final album from 2024. And our final song of the main set prior to the encore is going to be from the debut, one of the few actual fantasy songs that the band did before they got all those fantasy covers, the opening song of the debut album, In the Beginning. And boast, having seen Mac and myself in December, it's kind of different when you are in the moment as well. That you forgive a lot more in a live setting than you might on record, for example. But for the most part, Mac has sounded pretty good. Not great, but pretty good. The only times it got really rough were on the rocky numbers, so Maybe I'm Amazed was pretty cringeworthy on the vocal front, and maybe a couple of others, but at 82 I wasn't going to be bothered, and well, we all know what Lightfoot sounded like in 2016, but I was just damn happy to see it. So, but again, I can't listen to that live album from the Albert Hall. Yes. Oh, Tracy, you're off. Well, thanks for popping in. I hope you've become a certified Magnum fan after the last couple of hours. But if not, I'll keep working on it. And actually, I have one theory about how Bob has maintained his voice over the years, and it's the only thing that makes a Magnum gig a disappointment is the fact that they keep the sets to about 90 to 100 minutes. But if that's how Bob's stayed so strong all this time, then not having big 2.5 hours sets that they could easily fill with so many songs, then that's fine by me. Yeah, both I was at the Albert Hall. I don't know if that's true. Lord sounded rough on a lot of recordings over the years. And to be fair, he actually sounded better on that night than I was expecting. It's just not something you can listen to on headphones. But yeah, obviously with the upcoming dates, it's only 5 dates, so it's not so bad. But when Magnum did tours, they did a lot of nights in a row. And contrasts with Marillion, who are at the point where they're now saying they will not do more than 2 shows in a row without a night off for H to recover his voice. But yeah, anyone who thinks that Bob's voice is shot should check out David Coverdale or John Bon Jovi or Don Dokken or Joe Elliott. I mean, yeah, it's just ludicrous. Right, now, well, Tracy's just left, hasn't she? So keep an eye out on the community page, kids, because I will put up a poll probably sometime tomorrow to decide on the thing for next week. I'll spoil what I'm thinking. We could have a night of title tracks, not just Magnum title tracks by anybody. Or I was thinking a night of Beatles and Dylan covers, where we could finally answer the question is, should anybody cover the Beatles ever? And the answer might just be no. But mixing that in with some great Dylan covers from people. So if you've got thoughts on that, you can let me know. And then make sure to vote accordingly when that poll goes live. Yeah, and David, I think that might go down quite well and be an interesting and fun one either way. I mean, every stream I do is interesting and fun. Am I right? Am I right? Yes, I'm right.
Shines on everyone. Someone shines the light for me. Look inside yourself to understand. The questions answered, now I see.
And we're astonishingly close to hitting the 2-hour mark, so if we do go down during the next song, which is the last song, then that will be it for the night. So I'll say thank you to everybody now, just in case. That's a collective, everybody. And wow, there's been over 50 people in through the night, according to what I'm seeing on my dashboard. So thank you to anybody and everybody who's popped in for a minute, 5, 10, or almost 2 hours. It's very much appreciated. Yeah, so it ties into the Kingdom of Madness album, but on the album it segues into their worst track ever, and Kingdom of Madness is further down the track listing. Alrighty. So, a regular encore song from the band. Originally closed side one of the Chase the Dragon album in 1982. And is Tony's song about that moment when you're performing or making everything else worthwhile that you go through to get to that point, and having that one sacred hour with the audience. And as I say, this is the recording from December 2022, which was celebrating the 50th anniversary of the band, and was final gig Tony played with them. This being the final song of that night. And you have myself featured on audience. And I do a fantastic job, if I do say so myself. Speaking of myself, so mention this book, which came out last year and covers the whole band history, and also has a picture of the back of my head in it. So, Acting is Reacting merch. There you go. Oh, well, I'm really glad actually that it's been enjoyable. I would hate for it to have been anything else, but I'm sure it's not to everyone's taste how I've run things. But and obviously I'm talking a lot over some great music, which some people would not enjoy, which I totally get. But I will state for them, not that they're here, and anybody else who cares, that when I'm listening to songs on my regular videos on my channel, I don't talk over them very much at all, so it's a complete contrast on a live situation. I've only got a couple of the on-track ones, Bevan David. The other one I have is Toto, but I think the Magnum one is very well done. I don't agree with everything he says, and he only got one fact wrong in it, so I'm pretty impressed with that. Now this song isn't as long as it looks, because at the end of this we have Bob introducing the band and singing "We Wish You a Merry Christmas" and saying that they're going to carry on as long as they can, which we're not going to listen to because I'd probably be a wreck, and you don't want to see me lob in front of you, do you? I managed to keep the emotions at check, but suddenly they're coming on just thinking about it. No start being my statistician and saying that On a Storyteller's Night and Here Comes the Rain are the most represented songs of the night, with 3 songs apiece. Although in the case of Storyteller, one of those was a live version, of course. Of course, there are no live versions of tracks from Here Comes the Rain, at least not yet. I take it they will play something from that in the upcoming gigs. I will fill you in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you, Ashley, and thank you all. Bo Start, Tracy, who's gone, I know, Evan David, Rusty, who was in here before, River, who was with us at the top of the stream, and anyone else who's joined as the night's gone on. Really appreciate the fact that you all came to indulge me in my love for this band, because some of you know there's not a band I listen to more. Even if I do say Meridian's my favourite band, Magnum I can listen to any time, day or night. Always in the mood for them. And I've had 2 solid hours of doing that with some great company. So thanks you lot, and hopefully see you next week for maybe some Beatles and Dylan cover action, or maybe something else. Keep an eye out for that poll and vote wisely and well and once. And again, yeah, if anybody can break the tie for Elton John and John Mayer, please do. Otherwise, I'll have to do the tie break myself. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So thank you all again, and all I can say to end us off with is bye for now, but I hope not for long.